Most people think that Long Beach is just one big beach town, and I get why they feel that way, but that idea that it's all the same, it's really what ends up costing people thousands of dollars in some instances and years of frustration. But here's the thing, in all actuality, Long Beach is over 50 square miles, and each neighborhood, it's totally different. Some areas are very walkable, some not so much. Some areas are very secluded, others are very densely populated. Some of them have easy access to freeways, making it convenient to get back and forth to LA and Orange County. All that to say, if you are thinking about moving to Long Beach, you can't say that nobody warned you about the biggest mistakes that people make that cost them their dream lifestyle. Let's get into it. All of Long Beach's different neighborhoods in a lot of ways feel like different cities. And people think I'm joking when I say that, but it's the truth. It's this kind of thinking that really does cost people the frustration of just, realizing that they didn't quite get what they thought they were getting. There's so much nuance and variation from neighborhood to neighborhood. Some areas like downtown or Alamitos Beach are going to be more densely populated, for example, with mid and high-rise apartments. Bixby Knolls, on the other hand, is a lot more traditional with residential charm and some walkability. There is a huge mix, and honestly, you could live here for years and really not even see it all. Let me show you some numbers, and I hate to use as a reference point, but I do think it does serve a purpose. For example, downtown Long Beach has a walk score of in the 90s. This means you could walk pretty much to everything, coffee, groceries, restaurants. Conversely though, if you drive just 15 minutes north to the Los Cerritos area, the walk score drops to the 50s. Walk score kind of means nothing, but I do think it does serve a purpose in kind of giving you a big picture idea of the kind of lifestyle that you would walk into if you were to live in each location. Okay, now let's just briefly talk about price. And this is meant to give you kind of a high level understanding. In some areas, you can get condos for around $500,000. But if you are looking for waterfront homes in Naples, they can easily go over $3 million, okay? We kind of understand that. As a loose example, that's a 6 times price difference in the same city, and that's not because of the size or the age of the home necessarily. That really has more to do about where it sits in Long Beach. And this is, I think, where a lot of people get in trouble. This is a large part about why I make neighborhood videos every single week, because I want you guys to try to see what's really going on in each part of Long Beach. This is why I'm on a mission to really break down each neighborhood over the course of this next year or even more. And this is why I'm passionate about helping families really try to get this thing right, to equip them with as much information as possible. And hopefully these weekly videos will kind of help fast track that local insight. So anyways, subscribe now if you haven't already. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. But have you ever fallen in love with a house online only to find that when you get to the neighborhood, it doesn't quite meet what you expected? I think that's a pretty relatable thing, and I think it happens a lot in Long Beach because people buy into these big picture macro concepts and they don't kind of spend the time to dive into the details, which is why we're making this video. So let me walk you through how this plays out. So downtown Long Beach, for example, is great if you like city life, bars, being able to walk to dinner or drinks, but it's also loud, it's also busy at different times of the day. It has some homelessness issues, but if you're looking for something more quiet, Belmont Shore, for example, it looks amazing in photos. It's a thing that we always think about when we think about prime Long Beach, but the pictures don't always convey what it's really like to live there, especially during the summer, for example, where it could get very buzzy and parking can turn into a nightmare. So people move here for perfect beach days without even realizing that sometimes there's just a lot of other things that come with it. Conversely, Bluff Heights is going to be very different. It's one of the quieter neighborhoods, with the charming homes and, walkable blocks. And there are some places that you can get around to on foot, but if you are looking for, easier access to dining and some shopping options, then it's probably not exactly what you're looking for. Bixby Knolls, it gives you more space for your money. If you're used to something that's a little bit more walkable like Santa Monica or Manhattan Beach, this kind of variation is going to kind of be jarring for you, even though there are some pockets of Bixby that are somewhat walkable. Okay, you think that you found your perfect neighborhood for your lifestyle, perfect. But there's typically a whole other layer of things that most people miss out on, don't necessarily consider at first glance. And those details are really the ones that shape your day-to-day life. For example, permit zones are all over Long Beach. And that means that guest parking can be tricky. It can also make it more difficult to get work done on your home. In some neighborhoods, one street has different rules from the next, and those rules can shift depending on if there's an event happening nearby or construction happening. Sometimes come with hidden costs that can just be the tip of the iceberg compared to what we will discuss, which is, really the Instagram version of fantasy versus the daily reality of what it comes to living and having the lifestyles most people don't think about, or even the unknown maintenance expenses that come with living next to the water, for example. Conversely, noise from the Long Beach airport also surprises people. Some neighborhoods get regular plane noise. Bixby Knolls is one of them. It sits directly under a major flight path, so planes fly low enough. In some instances, if you're standing outside having a conversation, it actually might make it so that it interrupts your conversation. The city does enforce these strict noise ordinances that, for commercial flights that typically happen between 10 a.m. and 7 a.m. But the thing that most people don't think about is that these same rules don't apply to small private planes or charter flights or flight schools. And I think it's really interesting to see how the different neighbors respond to it. Some neighbors are really passionate about it. They've joined these kind of groups, like the Small Aircraft Noise Reduction Group, for example, which is an advocacy group that kind of pushes back against noise pollution. And they, track the flights. They are really advocating for the people in the neighborhood to create more transparency around the enforcement. But then other people, for example, in the neighborhood don't really care. It doesn't have a really big impact on their daily life. I think it's really important though, just to at least have the knowledge and information of it to make that consideration and choice for yourself. Traffic is another thing that people underestimate. Yes, Long Beach is cheaper to live in and gets you more bang for your buck than Santa Monica or Manhattan Beach. But if you work in West LA and you have to make that commute daily, then, depending on what part of Long Beach you're in, maybe that commute just might not feel worth it. That commute can really be over an hour each way, depending on rush hour traffic and what time of day you're traveling. These are the things that will really influence and are really important to kind of walk through when you're determining where is the right place for me and how should I go about doing this. But even these practical issues, they pale in comparison to the biggest mistake of them all. And that one thing leads to what I think is one of the most expensive forms of remorse. And let me show you why, how the mismatch between expectation and reality can really cost you more than just hundreds of thousands of dollars, but really your happiness. Okay, so everyone I talk to has a picture in their head of what life in Long Beach should feel like, will feel like when they live there. Again, that picture doesn't always match up with what real life looks like. And I think that's where the most expensive mistakes happen. One of the biggest shocks is the commute. I had a couple, but they started looking in Long Beach because they just got a lot more bang for their buck. They fell in love with a neighborhood, they fell in love with a house. When we had them kind of go through the process of driving their route during rush hour traffic, they realized that it wasn't gonna make sense, even if it meant that they were driving a couple times a week. Okay, I'm gonna stop making you wait. I'm gonna share with you part of the process that helps my clients avoid making expensive mistakes when they move to Long Beach. Okay, you could read about a neighborhood all day, but you really won't know how it feels like until you spend time there. So what I say all the time is visit the neighborhood at different times of the day, at different times of the week, okay? A place at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday can feel totally different 6 p.m. on a Friday. Try driving through rush hour in the morning. Go again in the evening, visit on the weekend. Drive the commute that you believe that you are going to be taking most commonly. Walk around, talk to some of the people who live there. This is one of the most helpful things that you can do to get your insights. The point here is that you should always know exactly what you're getting into, and it's not always going to be evident just based off what you see online. Some things you kind of have to get a little bit of a feel to really get into it. Check the FEMA flood maps. See if you have to get flood insurance. If you're sensitive to sound, be conscious of the flight path. These are things that can save you money and headaches later. Know what matters most to you. Make a list of the things that you need versus what you think is gonna be nice. Be real about your lifestyle. Be honest about what you could be flexible with. So we found another alternative. And it becomes easier to narrow down what neighborhoods make sense when you could just be real about your threshold for what works and what doesn't. So all that to say, the market is moving fast. Again, depending on what pocket that you're looking at, this idea of the American dream and housing being attainable, I think has kind of evolved. And it's not to say that it's impossible, it's not, but it is getting more challenging. I think it's important to come to it with strategy. And that's what I'm passionate about, helping people believe that it's possible and also helping them avoid costly mistakes and finding you a place that actually makes sense for your lifestyle, one that you love, not just one that is cool in theory. Here's what you also need to know next is that Long Beach is going through a lot of big changes right now, like literally in real time. We just made a video about it with billions of dollars being spent on new buildings and a lot of updates of the homes in the area. So click on this video to see what's really happening in Long Beach. Again, most importantly, thank you for watching. Thank you for making it this far into the video. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, as we help you dive deeper into all things Long Beach and LA real estate and all surrounding pockets every single week, as we help you believe for more. Peace.